You're exhausted. Not the tired after a long day kind. The bone-deep kind. The kind where you wake up already behind. Already anxious. Already dreading a life you worked so hard to build. And here's what kills me. You're exhausted because you did everything right. You pushed harder. You sacrificed more. You followed the playbook that every successful person swears by. So why does winning feel like slowly dying? I'll tell you why. Because the advice you've been following is a lie. A beautiful, seductive, soul-crushing lie. And right now, millions of people just like you are waking up, hitting snooze, dragging themselves to coffee, scrolling through someone else's highlight reel, and thinking the same poisonous thought. I just need to push harder. That thought is destroying them. It almost destroyed me. And if you don't hear what I'm about to tell you, it will destroy you too. But here's what nobody tells you. That advice is destroying you. This audiobook exists because I refuse to let you burn out chasing a lie. And by the time you finish listening, you'll have something most people never find. A smarter way to win. A sustainable way. A method that actually works. Let me tell you about Maya. Maya Carter was 32 years old the night she realized she was running on empty. Not the tired after a long day kind of empty. The kind where you sit in your car in the parking garage, engine off, and forget why you came down here in the first place. The fluorescent lights of the parking garage hummed above her, a sound she'd never noticed before. Funny how silence makes you hear things. Her reflection stared back from the rearview mirror, a stranger with tired eyes and a forced smile that had become permanent. She used to dream about this life. The title, the salary, the respect. Now she had all of it, and she'd never felt more empty. Success was supposed to feel like victory. Instead, it felt like a slow surrender. Piece by piece, she'd given herself away, and she wasn't sure what was left. She had done everything right. At least, that's what everyone told her. Promoted twice in 3 years. The youngest product manager on her floor. The one who always stayed late, always delivered, always said yes. Push harder. That was the advice her father gave her when she was 12, struggling with math homework. Push harder. That was what her first boss said when she wanted the promotion. Push harder. That's what every podcast, every LinkedIn guru, every motivational quote had drilled into her skull. So she pushed and pushed. And now she sat in a dark parking garage at 11 p.m., hands trembling on the steering wheel, wondering if this was all there was. Here's the uncomfortable truth most success advice won't tell you. The dominant cultural solution, more grit, longer hours, relentless hustle, creates temporary wins and long-term damage. It's not that hard work doesn't matter. It does. But the way most people work hard is fundamentally broken. Think about it. How many times have you started a new routine, felt that surge of motivation, crushed it for 2 weeks, and then crashed? How many Januaries have you promised yourself this year would be different, only to find yourself back in the same patterns by March? You're not weak. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You've been using the wrong operating system. Average performers rely on motivation. They wait until they feel like it. They push through with willpower until willpower runs out. And then they blame themselves when they crash. Elite performers do something completely different. They design systems. They build environments that make good behavior automatic. They work with their biology instead of against it. They don't depend on feeling motivated. They create conditions where success becomes inevitable. This is not theory. This is science. And this audiobook will show you exactly how to do it. Maya's phone buzzed. Another message from Ethan. You still at the office? Legend. See you at the 7 a.m. stand-up. Ethan Price, 28 years old. Her former colleague who had started his own company last year. The guy who posted gym selfies at 5 a.m. and bragged about sleeping 4 hours. The guy everyone called a machine. Maya used to admire him. Now she wasn't sure. She'd seen the cracks. The way his hands shook during presentations. The canceled plans. The broken relationships. The forced laughter that never reached his eyes. Ethan was winning on the outside. But Maya had started to wonder. Winning what, exactly? There's a seductive lie in hustle culture. It tells you that sacrifice equals success. That if you're not suffering, you're not serious. That rest is for the weak and balance is for quitters. But here's what the research actually shows. Chronic overwork doesn't increase output, it decreases it. Studies from Stanford found that productivity per hour declines sharply when work weeks exceed 50 hours. Past 55 hours, productivity drops so much that there's no point in working at all. Read that again. After 55 hours, you might as well have stayed home. You're not producing more. You're just destroying your health for nothing. After 55 hours, you might as well have stayed home. You're not producing more. You're just destroying your health for nothing. This is what Maya was beginning to understand. The lie she'd been sold wasn't just wrong. It was the exact opposite of the truth. So what's the alternative? That's what this entire audiobook is about. Over the coming chapters, you're going to learn a completely different approach. Not hustle, not grind, something smarter. Here's what's ahead. You'll discover why motivation is unreliable and what actually drives lasting behavior change. Hint, it's not willpower. You'll learn the science of energy management, because time management is useless if you're running on empty. You'll understand how attention works in the modern economy and how to protect your focus from a world designed to steal it. You'll see why identity is the ultimate leverage point and how changing who you believe you are changes everything you do. You'll confront the hidden patterns of self-sabotage that keep smart people stuck. And you'll build a complete daily operating system, practical rituals, scheduling blocks, feedback loops that make sustainable success not just possible, but automatic. This is the method. This is the blueprint. This is what nobody taught Maya until she went looking for it herself. Let me be direct with you. If you're listening to this audiobook hoping for a magic pill, you're in the wrong place. There is no shortcut that doesn't eventually cost you. But if you're tired of the cycle, motivation, effort, crash, guilt, repeat, then you're exactly where you need to be. The path forward isn't about working harder. It's about working smarter. It's about designing your life so that success isn't a constant battle. It's about building systems that support you instead of drain you. Maya didn't know any of this that night in the parking garage. She just knew something had to change. She couldn't keep living on adrenaline and anxiety. She couldn't keep sacrificing her health, her relationships, her sanity for a version of success that left her empty. What happened next changed everything. She started asking different questions. Not, how can I push harder? But why isn't this working? Not what's wrong with me, but what's wrong with the system? And slowly, painfully, beautifully, she found the answers. Here's my promise to you. By the end of this audiobook, you will have a complete toolkit for sustainable success. Not the kind that burns bright and flames out. The kind that compounds. The kind that lasts. You'll understand the psychology behind your behavior in ways you never have before. You'll have practical strategies you can implement starting tomorrow. And you'll have something even more valuable than tactics. You'll have a new way of thinking. A new operating system for your life. The grind isn't going anywhere. The world will keep demanding more. Your inbox will keep filling. Your responsibilities will keep growing. But you don't have to meet that world with brute force. You can outsmart it. That's what Maya learned. That's what you're about to learn. Take a breath. You're in the right place. Let's begin. Chapter 2. The Real Cost of Pushing Harder. Maya woke up at 6:47 a.m. to the sound of her alarm. She had slept 5 hours. Maybe less. Her body felt heavy, like someone had filled her veins with wet cement overnight. This was normal now. She couldn't remember the last time she woke up feeling rested. The kind of rest where you open your eyes and actually want to get out of bed. That felt like a distant memory. Something from childhood, maybe. Before deadlines. Before quarterly reviews. Before the endless scroll of emails that followed her into her dreams. Coffee. That was the only thought. Get to the coffee. She shuffled to the kitchen, started the machine, and stared blankly at the wall while it brewed. Her reflection caught her eye in the microwave door. Dark circles. Pale skin. Eyes that used to sparkle now looked flat. When did I start looking like this? She didn't have an answer. Here's something most people don't understand about burnout. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not a dramatic collapse. It's a slow erosion. Day by day, week by week. So gradual that you don't notice until you're standing in your kitchen wondering when you became a ghost of yourself. The science is clear on this. Burnout isn't just feeling tired. It's a clinical syndrome with 3 distinct components. Emotional exhaustion, that drained, depleted feeling Maya knew so well. Depersonalization, a growing cynicism, a detachment from work and people, and reduced personal accomplishment. The sense that nothing you do matters, that you're running on a treadmill going nowhere. The World Health Organization officially recognized burnout as an occupational phenomenon in 2019. Not because it was new, because it had become an epidemic. And here's the part that should terrify you. Chronic stress doesn't just make you tired. It physically changes your brain. Studies using MRI scans have shown that prolonged stress shrinks the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, focus, and self-control. At the same time, it enlarges the amygdala, the fear and anxiety center. Read that again. The more you push without recovery, the worse your brain gets at the exact skills you need to succeed. Your focus deteriorates. Your judgment weakens. Your emotional regulation crumbles. You're not just burning out. You're literally damaging your cognitive hardware. This is the real cost of pushing harder. And almost nobody talks about it. Maya's phone lit up. A text from her partner, David. Dinner tonight? I miss you. She stared at the message for a long moment. They lived in the same apartment, slept in the same bed. But David was right. They hadn't really seen each other in weeks. She came home late. He was already asleep. She left early. He was still in bed. Two ships passing in the night. Except they weren't passing. They were drifting apart. I'll try, she typed back, knowing, even as she sent it, that she probably wouldn't make it. This was another cost nobody warned her about. The relationship tax. The slow withdrawal from the people who mattered most. The canceled plans. The half-present conversations. The growing distance that compound interest turned into canyons. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that chronic work stress is one of the leading predictors of relationship breakdown. Not because people stop caring, but because they stop showing up. And relationships, like muscles, atrophy without use. Maya cared about David deeply, but caring wasn't enough when she had nothing left to give. That afternoon, she saw Ethan in the break room. He was pouring his fourth coffee of the day. She'd been counting without meaning to. His energy was manic, scattered. He talked fast, interrupted himself, jumped from topic to topic like a bird that couldn't find a branch to land on. Big things coming, he said, grinning too wide. The startup's about to close a major round. Investors are circling. This is it, Maya. This is the year everything changes. She nodded, made the appropriate sounds of enthusiasm. But she noticed things. The way his hands trembled slightly as he lifted the cup. The redness in his eyes. The fact that he'd lost weight, not in a healthy way, but in a hollowed-out way. Like something was eating him from the inside. Ethan was the poster child for hustle culture. He wore his sleep deprivation like a badge of honor. He bragged about working weekends, pulling all-nighters, sacrificing everything for the dream. And for a while, it worked. His company grew. His social media following exploded. He was featured in articles about young entrepreneurs disrupting industries. But Maya had known Ethan for years. She remembered the guy he used to be. Funny, warm, the first person to organize happy hours, to remember birthdays, to ask how you were actually doing. That guy was gone. In his place was a machine running on fumes and adrenaline. And machines, eventually, break down. Here's the truth about motivation that nobody wants to admit. It's unreliable. Motivation is an emotion. And emotions, by their nature, fluctuate. You feel motivated on Monday morning after a good weekend. You feel unmotivated on Thursday afternoon after 3 bad meetings. You feel fired up after watching an inspiring video. You feel deflated after scrolling through someone else's highlight reel. Building your success on motivation is like building your house on sand. It shifts. It moves. It cannot hold. Average performers wait until they feel motivated. They need the right mood, the right energy, the right circumstances. And when those don't appear, they don't act. Elite performers understand something different. They know that motivation follows action, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel like doing something. You start doing it, and the feeling follows. But here's the deeper insight. Elite performers don't rely on motivation at all. They build systems. They create environments where the right behavior is the easy behavior. They remove friction from good choices and add friction to bad ones. This is the fundamental shift Maya hadn't made yet. She was still trying to willpower her way through life, still waiting for motivation to strike, still believing that if she just pushed harder, something would change. Nothing changes until you change the system. Let me give you a concrete example. Maya's morning routine was chaos. Alarm goes off. Snooze 3 times. Rush to shower. Skip breakfast. Grab coffee. Check email while getting dressed. Leave the house already behind schedule, already stressed, already depleted. This wasn't a discipline problem. It was a design problem. Her environment was set up for failure. Phone by the bed meant snooze was easy. No breakfast prep meant eating was hard. Email access meant her attention was hijacked before she even left the house. Now imagine a different design. Phone charges in another room. Snooze requires getting up. Breakfast prep the night before. Eating is effortless. Email blocked until 9 a.m. Her attention is protected. Same person, same willpower, completely different outcomes. This is what systems thinking looks like. You stop blaming yourself for failing and start designing environments that make success automatic. Maya didn't know this yet, but she was about to learn. That evening, she didn't make it to dinner with David. A last-minute crisis. A product launch going sideways. 3 hours of emergency meetings that stretched into 5. By the time she got home, David was asleep on the couch, the dinner he'd made sitting cold on the table. She stood in the doorway, looking at him, at the meal he'd prepared, at the candles he'd lit that had long since burned out. Something cracked inside her. This wasn't sustainable. This wasn't even living. This was surviving. Barely. She thought about Ethan, about the trembling hands and the hollow eyes and the manic energy that felt less like enthusiasm and more like desperation. Is that where I'm headed? The question terrified her because she already knew the answer. Here's what I want you to understand. The cost of pushing harder isn't just fatigue. It's cognitive decline. It's relationship erosion. It's becoming someone you don't recognize. It's winning battles while losing the war. And the worst part? It doesn't even work. Research consistently shows that sustainable high performance comes from recovery, not relentless effort. Elite athletes don't train harder than everyone else. They recover smarter. They understand that growth happens in rest, not in grind. The same applies to knowledge work. Your brain needs downtime to consolidate learning, to generate creative insights, to restore the neurochemicals that power focus and motivation. When you skip recovery, you're not being disciplined. You're being foolish. You're borrowing from tomorrow to pay for today. And that debt always comes due. Maya was about to learn this the hard way. 2 weeks later, she collapsed. Not dramatically, not in public, just quietly, at her desk, in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. Her vision blurred. Her chest tightened. Her heart raced so fast she thought she was having a heart attack. The room spun. She couldn't breathe. Panic attack. Her first one. It wouldn't be her last. The paramedics came. The tests came back normal. Stress, they said. You need to slow down. Slow down. As if it were that simple. But sitting in that sterile emergency room, fluorescent lights humming overhead, Maya finally admitted what she'd been denying for years. Something had to change. Not eventually. Not next quarter. Not after the next milestone. Now. The question was, what? She didn't have an answer yet. But she knew where to start looking. Not in another productivity hack. Not in another hustle podcast. Not in another motivational speech about grinding harder. She needed something different. Something that actually worked. And she was about to find it. Chapter 3. The Hidden Operating System. 3 days after the panic attack, Maya sat in a therapist's waiting room, flipping through a magazine she wasn't reading. She felt like a fraud. People with real problems came to therapy. People with trauma, with diagnoses, with genuine crises. Not people who just couldn't handle their jobs. But the emergency room doctor had been insistent. This wasn't a one-time thing, he'd said. Your body is telling you something. Listen to it. So here she was. Listening. We're trying to. The therapist was fine. Nice. Asked the right questions. Gave her breathing exercises and suggested she set boundaries and practice self-care. Maya nodded along, took notes, and left feeling exactly the same as when she walked in. Self-care. As if a bubble bath could fix a broken operating system. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Maya's friend Sarah, a researcher at a university, had been listening to her vent over coffee. About the panic attack, the exhaustion, the feeling that no matter how hard she worked, she was always falling behind. Sarah had nodded thoughtfully. Then she said something that changed everything. "You should talk to Dr. Noor." "Who?" "Aisha Noor. She's a behavioral scientist in our department. Studies habit formation, performance psychology, that kind of thing. She has this whole framework about why high achievers burn out. It's not what you think." Maya was skeptical. She'd read the self-help books, listen to the podcasts. None of it stuck. But something in Sarah's voice made her curious. A certainty, like she'd seen something that actually worked. "What's her number?" Dr. Aisha Noor's office was nothing like Maya expected. No motivational posters. No vision boards. No framed quotes about hustle and grind. Instead, the walls were covered with whiteboards full of diagrams, flowcharts, and equations. Stacks of academic journals crowded every surface. A small plant sat on the windowsill, somehow thriving despite the chaos. Dr. Noor herself was calm, measured. She spoke slowly, deliberately, like every word was chosen with precision. Late 40s, glasses, a warm smile that somehow made Maya feel less like a patient and more like a colleague. "So," Dr. Noor said, settling into her chair, "Sarah tells me you're burning out." Maya laughed bitterly. "That's one way to put it. Tell me about your approach. How do you typically try to improve your performance?" Maya thought for a moment. "I set goals. I make plans. I try to stay motivated. When I fall off track, I push myself to get back on. Sometimes it works. Mostly it doesn't." Dr. Noor nodded slowly, like she'd heard this exact answer 1,000 times. "And when it doesn't work, what do you do?" "Try harder. Push through. Tell myself I need more discipline." "And how's that working for you?" Maya gestured at herself, at the dark circles, at the fact that she was sitting in a behavioral scientist's office after a panic attack. "Point taken," Dr. Noor said with a gentle smile. "Let me show you something." She stood up and walked to one of the whiteboards. Drew 2 boxes. "Most people operate like this," she said, writing in the first box. "They have a goal. They feel motivated. They take action. When motivation fades, and it always fades, they try to push through with willpower. When willpower runs out, they fail. Then they feel guilty. The guilt sometimes creates a burst of new motivation, and the cycle repeats." Maya stared at the diagram. It was her life, sketched in dry erase marker. "This is what I call the motivation willpower trap," Dr. Noor continued. "It's how most people approach change. And it has a fatal flaw, which is motivation and willpower are both limited resources. They fluctuate based on sleep, stress, mood, blood sugar, 100 variables you can't control. Building your success on them is like building a house on quicksand." She moved to the second box. Elite performers operate differently. They don't rely on motivation. They build systems. Here's the insight that changes everything. You are not in control of your motivation. You wake up some days fired up and other days flat. That's not a character flaw. That's biology. That's being human. But you are in control of your environment, your systems, the structures that shape your behavior. Average performers ask, "How do I get motivated?" Elite performers ask, "How do I design my environment so that I don't need motivation?" This is the hidden operating system, the architecture beneath your daily choices. Most people never see it. They think success is about willpower, about pushing through, about being tougher than everyone else. But the research tells a different story. Studies on behavior change consistently show that environment beats willpower. People who successfully maintain habits don't have more discipline. They have better systems. They've designed their lives so that the right choice is the easy choice. Think about it. If you want to eat healthier, you don't need more willpower. You need to stop keeping junk food in your house. Remove the friction from good choices. Add friction to bad ones. If you want to exercise consistently, you don't need to feel motivated every morning. You need to lay out your gym clothes the night before. Sleep in your workout gear. Make the path to exercise so smooth that resistance becomes almost impossible. This is systems thinking, and it's the foundation of sustainable success. Maya leaned forward in her chair. Something was clicking. So you're saying I've been fighting the wrong battle? Dr. North smiled. Exactly. You've been trying to change your behavior through force. But behavior is downstream of environment. Change the environment, and behavior follows naturally. Give me an example. Something specific. Dr. North thought for a moment. Tell me about your mornings. Maya described the chaos. The snooze button. The rush shower. The skipped breakfast. The email checking before she even left the house. And how do you feel by the time you get to work? Exhausted. Behind. Already stressed. Now imagine this, Dr. North said. Your phone charges in another room, so snoozing requires getting out of bed. Your breakfast is prepped the night before, just grab and eat. Your email is blocked until 9 a.m. Your workout clothes are laid out. Your bag is packed. Maya tried to picture it. A morning where she wasn't constantly making decisions. Where the right path was already laid out. Same person, Dr. Noor continued. Same amount of willpower. Completely different outcome. That's the power of systems. Here's what most people miss. Every day, you make hundreds of decisions. What to eat, when to work, whether to exercise, how to respond to that email. Each decision depletes a finite resource called cognitive load. By the end of the day, you're exhausted not because you worked hard, but because you decided hard. Decision fatigue is real. It's why successful people often wear the same outfit every day. It's why meal prepping works. It's why routines matter. Systems reduce decisions. They automate the good choices so you don't have to think about them. They preserve your cognitive resources for the work that actually matters. Average performers make every choice fresh, every day. They exhaust themselves before the real work begins. Elite performers decide once, then systematize. They front-load the decision-making so that daily execution becomes automatic. This is why motivation fails. It requires you to make the right choice over and over, relying on a resource that fluctuates wildly. Systems only require you to make the right choice once, when you design the system. After that, the system does the work. Maya sat with this for a long moment. Her whole life, she'd blamed herself for failing, for not being disciplined enough, for not wanting it badly enough, for being weak when others seemed strong. But what if it wasn't about strength at all? What if she'd just been using the wrong tools? There's more, Dr. Noor said. Systems are just the beginning. There are 3 other pillars we need to discuss. Energy management, attention protection, and the most powerful one of all, identity. Maya's eyes widened. Identity, the deepest leverage point for change. But we'll get there. First, you need to understand energy. Because all the systems in the world won't help if you're running on empty. She handed Maya a small notebook. I want you to track something this week. Every hour, rate your energy on a scale of 1 to 10. Don't try to change anything yet. Just observe. Notice when you're high. Notice when you crash. We're going to find your patterns. Maya took the notebook. It felt like being handed a map to territory she'd never explored. Her own biology. Her own rhythms. The operating system she'd been ignoring her entire life. That night, Maya sat at her kitchen table, notebook open, pen in hand. She thought about everything Dr. Noor had said, about systems and environments and the exhaustion of constant decision-making. For the first time in months, she felt something other than dread. She felt curious, not motivated. She knew better than to trust that now, but genuinely curious about her own patterns, about what she might discover if she stopped fighting herself and started studying herself. David walked in, surprised to see her home before midnight. Everything okay? She looked up at him. At this man she loved, but had been slowly disappearing from. I think it might be, she said. I learned something today. Yeah? What's that? Maya thought about how to explain it. The systems. The environment design. The hidden operating system she'd never known existed. I've been playing the wrong game, she finally said. But I think I just found the rules to a better one. David sat down across from her, curious, present, and for the first time in a long time, so was she. Chapter 4. Energy is your real currency. Maya spent 7 days tracking her energy. Every hour, she paused whatever she was doing and wrote a number in her notebook. 1 to 10. Low to high. No judgment, just observation. What she discovered shocked her. She had always assumed her energy was random. Good days and bad days. Luck of the draw. Some mornings you wake up sharp, some mornings you don't. But the data told a different story. Her energy wasn't random at all. It followed patterns. Predictable, repeatable patterns that she had never noticed because she had never looked. She was sharpest between 9 and 11 a.m. every single day, without exception. She crashed between 2 and 4 p.m. every single day, like clockwork. She got a second wind around 7 p.m. that lasted until about 9. And after 10 p.m., her cognitive function fell off a cliff. Yet this was exactly when she'd been forcing herself to do her most important work. 7 days of data, a pattern she'd been ignoring her entire career. Here's what most people get catastrophically wrong about productivity. They manage time. They don't manage energy. They block out hours on their calendar without asking a crucial question. What state will I be in during those hours? They schedule important meetings at 3 p.m. when their brain is running on fumes. They save creative work for late night when their prefrontal cortex has already clocked out. Then they wonder why everything feels so hard. This is the energy blind spot, and it's destroying your performance. Think about it this way. Time is a container. Energy is what you put in it. An hour of work when you're sharp and focused might produce 10 times the output of an hour when you're depleted. Average performers treat all hours as equal. They fill their calendar and hope for the best. Elite performers match their tasks to their energy. They protect their peak hours for their most important work. They schedule low-stakes tasks for their valleys. They work with their biology instead of against it. Same 24 hours. Completely different results. Maya brought her notebook to her next session with Dr. Noor. The scientist studied the data carefully, nodding as she flipped through the pages. A small smile appeared on her face. "This is excellent," she said. "You've just discovered your chronotype." "My what?" "Your chronotype. Your body's natural rhythm of alertness and fatigue. It's largely genetic, determined by your circadian biology. Some people are larks. They peak early, fade by evening. Some are owls. They come alive at night. Most people are somewhere in between." She pointed at Maya's data. "You're a classic mid-range chronotype with a strong morning peak. Your biology wants you to do deep work between 9 and 11. It wants you to rest or do administrative tasks in the early afternoon. And it definitely doesn't want you doing complex thinking after 10 p.m. Maya stared at her notebook. All those late nights. All that forcing. All that fighting against the current of her own body. "I've been doing everything backwards," she said quietly. "Most people are. Nobody teaches us this. We're told to push through fatigue, to ignore our bodies, to treat tiredness as weakness. But your body isn't being weak. It's being honest. The question is whether you'll listen. Let me give you the science. Your body runs on a roughly 24-hour internal clock called the circadian rhythm. This clock regulates far more than just sleep. It controls hormone release, body temperature, cognitive performance, and dozens of other functions. Throughout the day, this rhythm creates natural waves of alertness and fatigue. These aren't flaws to overcome. They're features to leverage. Here's what happens biologically during a typical day. Cortisol, your alertness hormone, peaks about 30 minutes after waking. This is when most people feel sharpest. Mental clarity, focus, and willpower are at their highest. By early afternoon, your body temperature dips slightly. Adenosine, the sleepiness chemical, has been building since you woke up. This is the post-lunch slump that almost everyone experiences. It's not the food making you tired. It's biology. Later in the day, body temperature rises again. Many people experience a second wind. Not as powerful as the morning peak, but significant. After about 16 hours of wakefulness, adenosine levels are high enough that sleep pressure becomes strong. Fighting this is possible, but expensive. Every hour of forced productivity after this point costs more than it produces. This is the architecture of your energy. You can fight it, like Maya had been doing, or you can work with it. The choice seems obvious when you see it clearly. "So what do I do with this information?" Maya asked. Dr. Noor pulled out a blank sheet of paper and drew a simple graph. A wave, rising and falling across the day. You redesign your schedule around your biology. Here's the principle. Match task intensity to energy availability. She labeled 3 zones on the graph. Peak hours, your 9 to 11 window, are sacred. This is when you do your most cognitively demanding work. Creative thinking, strategic decisions, complex problems. Nothing else. No meetings, no emails, no administrative tasks. This is your golden time. She pointed to the afternoon dip. Trough hours, your 2 to 4 window, are for low-stakes tasks. Administrative work, routine emails, organizing, anything that doesn't require peak cognition. Don't fight the slump. Use it strategically. She tapped the evening rise. Recovery hours, your second wind, can be used for moderate tasks. Planning, light creative work, or, and this is important, for actual recovery. Exercise, relationships, hobbies, things that refuel you for the next day. Maya studied the diagram. It was so simple, so obvious, now that she saw it. Why didn't anyone tell me this? Dr. Nur smiled sadly. Because our culture rewards visible effort over invisible strategy. Working late looks impressive. Working smart often doesn't look like work at all. Here's a truth that will change how you think about productivity. Energy is not just about sleep. It's a system with multiple inputs. Sleep is foundational, yes. 7 to 9 hours for most adults. Non-negotiable. But there's more. Movement matters. Exercise doesn't just burn calories. It releases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which improves cognitive function, memory, and mood. A 20-minute walk can boost your energy for hours afterward. Nutrition matters. Blood sugar crashes kill focus. Protein and complex carbohydrates provide sustained energy. Simple sugars create spikes and crashes that sabotage your afternoon. Hydration matters. Even mild dehydration, just 1 to 2%, impairs cognitive performance. Most people are chronically underhydrated and don't realize it. Recovery matters. Not just sleep, but active rest, meditation, nature exposure, social connection, activities that restore rather than deplete. Average performers treat their bodies like machines. Push until empty, then collapse. Elite performers treat their bodies like athletes treat theirs. Train, recover, fuel, repeat. They understand that sustainable performance requires sustainable inputs. You cannot outwork bad energy management. The math doesn't work. You can push harder for a while, but eventually, the debt comes due. Maya started experimenting. She moved her most important work to mornings. The strategic thinking, the creative projects, the decisions that actually move the needle. All before 11 a.m. She stopped fighting the afternoon slump. Instead of forcing herself through complex tasks at 3 p.m., she batched her emails, organized her files, scheduled her calls. Tasks that didn't require her sharpest self. She started taking a 15-minute walk after lunch. Not for exercise, just movement. Fresh air. A change of scenery. It felt indulgent at first, like she was cheating somehow. But the results were undeniable. Her afternoon fog lifted earlier. Her evenings felt less depleted. She had energy left over. Actual surplus. For David, for friends, for herself. 1 week into the experiment, she had a realization that stopped her in her tracks. She was getting more done in fewer hours. Not slightly more. Significantly more. The work that used to take her all day now compressed into focused morning blocks. The rest of her time was freed up for lower-stakes tasks and actual living. She had been taught that productivity meant more hours. But the truth was exactly opposite. Productivity meant the right hours, matched to the right tasks, protected from distraction and depletion. There's a concept Dr. Nur introduced that Maya couldn't stop thinking about. Energy accounting. Most people track their money carefully, Dr. Nur explained. They know their income, their expenses, their balance. But they treat energy like it's infinite, like they can spend it without consequence. She leaned forward. Start thinking of energy like currency. You have a daily budget. Every activity either deposits or withdraws from that budget. Meetings withdraw. Focused work withdraws. Shallow tasks withdraw less, but still withdraw. Exercise, sleep, good food, these deposit. Recovery deposits. The question isn't just, do I have time for this? It's, do I have energy for this? And if this expense will put me in deficit, what's the cost of that deficit tomorrow? Maya thought about all the times she'd said yes to things because she had time. Evening work calls, weekend emails, Just one more task before bed. She'd had time, but she hadn't had energy, and she'd been borrowing against tomorrow to pay for today's obligations. No wonder she was bankrupt. That Friday night, something small happened that felt enormous. Maya finished her work at 5:30 p.m., not because she ran out of willpower, not because she forced herself to stop, but because she was actually done. Her important work was complete. Her energy was managed. Her system had worked. She came home to find David cooking dinner. She didn't collapse on the couch. She didn't disappear into her phone. She stood in the kitchen with him, chopping vegetables, talking about nothing important. It felt revolutionary. "You seem different lately," David said, glancing at her. "Yeah, more here, more you." She thought about that, about what it meant to be more herself. For years, she'd given her best energy to work, to deadlines, to obligations. By the time she got home, she was a depleted shell. The people who mattered most got what was left over, which was almost nothing. Energy management wasn't just about productivity. It was about presence, about having something left for the life outside of work. She squeezed David's hand. "I'm learning," she said. "Slowly, but I'm learning." The grind wasn't gone. The demands weren't smaller. But something had shifted. She wasn't fighting her biology anymore. She was finally working with it. The recovery paradox. Maya was 2 weeks into her energy experiment when she made a disturbing discovery. She was doing everything right, protecting her peak hours, matching tasks to energy levels, tracking her patterns religiously, but something wasn't improving. Her baseline energy, the foundation everything else was built on, remained stubbornly low. She was optimizing a depleted system, rearranging furniture on a sinking ship. Dr. Noor noticed it immediately during their session. "Your energy management is excellent," she said, reviewing Maya's tracking data. "But there's a problem. You're managing energy you don't have. The tank is nearly empty. No amount of optimization fixes that." "So what do I do?" Dr. Noor set down the notebook and looked at her directly. "You recover. Actually recover. Not the fake recovery you've been doing. Real recovery." Maya felt defensive. "I rest. I take weekends off." "Sometimes." "Do you? Or do you just work differently on weekends?" "Check email just once." "Think about projects while pretending to relax." "Rest your body while your mind keeps grinding." The silence that followed was answer enough. Here's the paradox that high achievers never understand. Rest is not the opposite of productivity. Rest is the foundation of productivity. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot withdraw from an empty account. You cannot perform at a high level when your biological systems are running on fumes. And yet, this is exactly what most ambitious people try to do. They view rest as weakness, as lost time, as something to minimize so they can maximize output. They brag about sleeping 4 hours. They feel guilty for taking vacations. They treat their bodies like machines that should run continuously. But here's what the science actually shows. Sleep deprivation impairs cognitive function more than alcohol intoxication. After 17 hours without sleep, your mental performance is equivalent to a blood alcohol level of 0.05%. After 24 hours, it's equivalent to 0.1%. Legally drunk in every country. You wouldn't show up to an important meeting drunk, but you show up sleep-deprived all the time, thinking you're being dedicated. You're not dedicated. You're impaired, and the work you produce reflects it. There are 2 types of recovery, Dr. Noor explained, and most people only do one of them badly. She drew 2 columns on her whiteboard. Passive recovery is what most people think of as rest. Sitting on the couch, watching television, scrolling through your phone. It's the absence of work. But here's the problem. Passive recovery isn't very effective at actually restoring your systems. She tapped the second column. Active recovery is different. It's engagement with activities that genuinely restore your cognitive, emotional, and physical resources. Exercise, nature exposure, deep social connection, creative hobbies, meditation, sleep, quality sleep, not just unconsciousness. Maya thought about her rest time. The Netflix binges that left her feeling more drained than before. The social media scrolling that 8 hours without providing any real restoration. The sleep interrupted by phone notifications and racing thoughts. She had been doing passive recovery almost exclusively. and it wasn't working. Active recovery takes more effort to initiate, Dr. Noor continued. That's the paradox. Rest that actually restores you requires intentional action. But the return on that investment is enormous. Let me tell you about sleep. Not the vague advice to get more sleep that you've heard 1,000 times. The actual science of what happens when you sleep and why it matters more than almost anything else you do. During sleep, your brain doesn't shut off. It shifts into a different mode of operation. Your glymphatic system activates, a cleanup crew that flushes toxic waste products from your brain. These include beta-amyloid plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. Skip sleep, and the garbage accumulates. Memory consolidation occurs. The information you learn during the day gets processed, organized, and transferred to long-term storage. Skip sleep, and learning becomes nearly impossible. Emotional regulation resets. The connection between your prefrontal cortex and amygdala is restored, giving you better control over your reactions. Skip sleep, and you become emotionally volatile, irritable, anxious, prone to poor decisions. Hormonal systems recalibrate. Growth hormone releases, cortisol cycles normalize, hunger hormones rebalance. Skip sleep, and your metabolism, immune system, and stress response all suffer. This is an optional maintenance. This is essential biological function, and you cannot hack it, shortcut it, or willpower through it. Average performers sacrifice sleep to get more done. They gain a few hours in the short term and lose cognitive function, health, and ultimately productivity in the long term. Elite performers protect sleep ruthlessly. They understand that 8 hours of high-quality sleep isn't lost time. It's the investment that makes everything else possible. Maya decided to visit her grandmother that weekend. Grandma June lived in a small house by the coast, 3 hours from the city. Maya hadn't seen her in months. Work had always seemed more urgent. But Dr. Noor's words echoed in her head. Real recovery. If anyone understood sustainable pace, it was Grandma June. 81 years old. Still sharp. Still active. Still engaged with life in a way that put Maya's exhausted existence to shame. She gardened every morning. Walked the beach every afternoon. Read every evening. Slept 8 hours every night without exception. You look tired, June said when Maya arrived, hugging her at the door. I am tired. I've been tired for years. June nodded slowly, the kind of nod that held decades of wisdom. Come, let's walk. They walked along the beach as the sun set. No agenda, no destination, just movement and salt air and the rhythm of waves. You know what I've learned in 81 years? June said eventually. What? The work never ends. There's always more to do, more to achieve, more to worry about. If you wait until the work is done to rest, you'll never rest. She stopped walking and looked at Maya directly. Rest isn't a reward for finishing. It's a requirement for continuing. The most productive thing you can do sometimes is absolutely nothing at all. Here's what most people get wrong about vacations. They think of them as luxuries, indulgences, something to earn through sufficient suffering. But research tells a different story. Studies show that regular vacations improve cardiovascular health, reduce mortality risk, and significantly decrease burnout. The benefits aren't just during the vacation. They extend for weeks afterward, creating a measurable boost in productivity and creativity. The key word is regular. One yearly vacation isn't enough. Your recovery system needs consistent inputs, not occasional emergencies. Just like you can't exercise once a year and expect to be fit, you can't rest once a year and expect to be restored. Elite performers build recovery into their rhythms. Daily recovery rituals, weekly rest periods, quarterly breaks, annual vacations, multiple layers of restoration operating at different timescales. Maya had none of this. She took time off only when she was already broken. Vacation as damage control rather than preventive maintenance. No wonder her baseline energy was so low. That night, Maya slept better than she had in years. No phone in the room. No alarm set. Just darkness and silence and the distant sound of waves. She woke naturally after 9 hours. 9 hours. When was the last time she'd slept that long? She couldn't remember. Her body felt different. Lighter. Like someone had removed weights she'd forgotten she was carrying. Grandma June was already in the garden when Maya found her. Sleep well. Incredibly well. June smiled, hands in the soil. Your body knows what it needs. You just have to stop arguing with it. They spent the day doing nothing productive. Gardening, cooking, walking, talking about nothing important. No screens, no email, no work. It felt strange at first. The guilt crept in. The voice that said she should be doing something. That rest was waste. That every moment not spent working was a moment lost. But as the day progressed, something shifted. The guilt faded. The internal noise quieted. And in its place came something Maya barely recognized. Peace. Not the exhausted collapse she usually called rest. Not the numbing of Netflix and wine after a brutal week. Actual peace. The kind that comes from genuine restoration. She understood now what Dr. Noor meant. This was active recovery. Engagement with life outside of work. Connection. Nature. Movement. Presence. And it was filling her tank in a way passive recovery never had. Here's what I want you to understand about recovery. It's not a nice to have. It's not something you do when you have time. It's not a reward for productivity. Recovery is the source of productivity. Every high-performance system in the world has built-in recovery. Athletes periodize their training. Muscles grow during rest, not during exercise. Even machines need maintenance and downtime. You are not exempt from this law. Your brain and body operate on the same principles. When you skip recovery, you don't gain time. You borrow it. And the interest rate is brutal. Degraded performance. Accumulated fatigue. Eventually, breakdown. When you prioritize recovery, you don't lose time. You invest it. And the returns compound. Better cognition. Sustained energy. Long-term capacity. This is the recovery paradox. Doing less, strategically, intentionally, allows you to do more. Rest doesn't compete with performance. Rest enables performance. Maya drove home Sunday evening with a plan. She would build recovery into her system the same way she'd built an energy management. Not as an afterthought, as a foundation. Daily, a shutdown ritual that truly ended work. An evening routine that promoted quality sleep. Movement that activated rather than depleted. Weekly, one full day with no work. Not light work. No work. A sacred boundary that couldn't be crossed. Quarterly, a long weekend away. Minimum. Non-negotiable. Even if, especially if, work felt too busy. Annually, a real vacation. At least 1 week. Completely disconnected. Actual restoration. She wrote these commitments in her notebook. Not as aspirations. As requirements. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. Rest isn't a reward for finishing. It's a requirement for continuing. Maya was finally ready to stop arguing with her body and start listening. Chapter 5. The Attention Economy War. Maya was 3 weeks into her new energy system when she hit a wall. Not an energy wall. Something different. She was protecting her mornings now. Doing deep work in her peak hours. Managing her biology like Dr. Noor had taught her. But something kept sabotaging her progress. Distractions. Even during her sacred morning hours, she couldn't stay focused. Her phone buzzed. Slack notifications popped. Emails demanded attention. Someone tagged her in a document. A colleague appeared at her desk with a quick question that turned into 30 minutes. By the time she fought off all the interruptions, her peak hours were gone. Burned up. Wasted on fragments and reactions instead of deep work. She brought this frustration to Dr. Noor. "I'm doing everything right," Maya said, "but I still can't focus. It's like the world won't let me." Dr. Noor nodded knowingly. "You've discovered the second battle. Energy was the first. Attention is the second. And honestly, attention is harder." She picked up her phone and held it up. "You're fighting a war against the most sophisticated manipulation machines ever created. And right now, you're losing. Here's what you need to understand about the modern world. Your attention is the most valuable resource on the planet. Not oil, not gold, not data. Attention. Trillion-dollar companies have spent billions of dollars engineering products specifically designed to capture and hold your focus. Every notification, every red badge, every infinite scroll, these aren't accidents. They're weapons. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes. Each check fragments your attention. Each fragment costs more than you realize. This is the attention economy, and you are the product being sold. Social media companies don't make money when you're productive. They make money when you're scrolling, when you're distracted, when you're stuck in loops of reaction and stimulation that feel urgent but produce nothing. Average performers let their attention be hijacked. They react to every ping, every buzz, every notification. They mistake being busy for being productive. They end the day exhausted but can't point to anything meaningful they accomplished. Elite performers understand they're at war. They build defenses. They create barriers between themselves and the attention thieves. They treat focus like the precious resource it is. This isn't about willpower. You cannot willpower your way through a system designed by thousands of engineers to hijack your brain. You need architecture. You need guardrails. I want you to meet someone, Dr. North said. His name is Sam Rivera. He's a systems designer who specializes in productivity architecture. If I'm the theory, he's the practice. 2 days later, Maya sat in a coffee shop across from Sam. He was younger than she expected, maybe 30, calm demeanor, spoke precisely, had this way of making complex things sound simple. Dr. Nur told me about your situation, Sam said. Energy system is working. Attention system is broken. Classic pattern. Can you fix it? Sam smiled. I can show you how to fix it, but I need you to understand something first. He pulled out his phone, set it on the table between them. This device is not your friend. It's designed by people whose literal job description, is to make it impossible for you to put down. Every feature, every notification, every design choice has been A/B tested millions of times to maximize engagement. He paused. Engagement is a euphemism. What they really mean is addiction, and you're fighting that addiction with nothing but good intentions. That's like fighting a tank with a stick. Maya stared at the phone. Her phone looked identical, sitting in her pocket right now, buzzing occasionally, calling for her attention. So what do I do? Sam leaned back. You build guardrails. Here's the concept that changed everything for Maya. Guardrails. Think about a mountain road. Sharp curves, steep drops, dangerous terrain. What keeps cars from flying off the edge? Not the driver's willpower, not their intention to stay safe. Guardrails. Physical barriers that make the wrong path nearly impossible. Your attention works the same way. You cannot rely on willpower to resist distraction. The distractions are too well designed, too compelling, too perfectly calibrated to your psychological vulnerabilities. Instead, you build guardrails. Barriers that make distraction difficult and focus easy. Sam pulled out a notebook and drew a simple diagram. There are 3 types of guardrails: environmental, technological, social. You need all 3. Environmental guardrails are about physical space. Where do you do your deep work? Sam asked. Maya thought about it. At my desk. Same place I do everything else. That's your first problem. Your brain associates that space with everything. Email, meetings, shallow work, deep work. There's no signal that tells your brain, this is focus time. He explained the concept of environmental cues. Your brain constantly reads your surroundings for signals about what mode to be in. Same desk, same context, same scattered attention. Create a focus environment, Sam said. It doesn't have to be elaborate. A specific chair, a certain corner of a coffee shop, even just putting on specific headphones. The key is consistency. When you're in that environment, you only do deep work. Nothing else. Ever. Maya thought about her workspace. The chaos of sticky notes and open tabs, and the constant presence of her phone. What about my phone? Out of sight. Literally. Different room if possible. A drawer at minimum. Research shows that just having your phone visible, even if it's off, reduces cognitive capacity. Your brain is spending resources monitoring it, wondering if something happened, resisting the urge to check. This sounded extreme. But Maya remembered all those mornings when she'd glanced at her phone just for a second and lost 45 minutes. Maybe extreme was exactly what she needed. Technological guardrails are about your devices. Sam walked Maya through his system. First, notification audit. Go through every app on your phone. Ask one question: does this need to interrupt me in real time? For most apps, the answer is no. He shared his own setup. Only 3 apps could send notifications: phone calls, text from his wife, and his calendar. Everything else was silent. Always. But what if I missed something important? Maya asked. You check things on your schedule, not theirs. Email gets checked 3 times a day: morning, midday, end of day. Slack gets checked hourly, not constantly. Social media gets checked once in the evening, if at all. He showed her app blockers, programs that physically prevented access to distracting sites during focus hours. Not just gentle reminders, actual barriers that required effort to overcome. The key is making distraction effortful and focus effortless. Right now, you have it backwards. Distraction is one tap away. Focus requires fighting through a minefield. We flip that. Social guardrails are about other people. This is the hardest one, Sam admitted, because it involves setting boundaries with humans. And humans don't like boundaries. He asked about Maya's typical workday. The quick questions from colleagues. The meetings that could have been emails. The constant availability that was expected but never explicitly demanded. You need to make your focus time visible and protected. Block it on your calendar. Label it clearly. Communicate to your team that during these hours, you're unavailable unless something is truly urgent. Maya winced. That feels selfish, does it? Or does it feel like you're finally valuing your own work as much as everyone else values their interruptions? He had a point. Here's the thing, Sam continued. Most interruptions aren't urgent. They're just convenient. For the other person, they have a question, so they ask it immediately. They don't consider that their 30-second question costs you 30 minutes of lost focus. He explained the research on context switching. Every time you shift attention, there's a cognitive penalty. It takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain deep focus after an interruption. If you're interrupted 4 times in an hour, you never reach deep focus at all. You're not being selfish by protecting your attention. You're being effective. And ironically, you'll be more available and more helpful once you've done your important work. You'll have capacity to give. Maya spent the next week implementing guardrails. She created a focus corner in her apartment. Just a chair by the window with a small desk. Nothing else. When she sat there, it meant one thing: deep work. She conducted a notification massacre. Turned off everything except calls and texts from family. The silence was disorienting at first, then liberating. She installed a website blocker. During her morning hours, social media and news sites were inaccessible. Not through willpower, through architecture. She started blocking focus time on her calendar. Visible to everyone. Non-negotiable. The first few days were rough. She reached for her phone constantly, found nothing there. She navigated to blocked sites by muscle memory, hit a wall. She felt twitchy, restless, like something was missing. But by day 4, something shifted. The twitchiness faded. The reaching stopped. And in its place came something she hadn't experienced in years. Deep focus. Uninterrupted stretches where she lost herself in work. Where time disappeared. Where 1 hour produced what used to take 3. This was what she'd been missing. This was what the distraction machine had stolen from her. And now she was taking it back. That Friday, Maya had coffee with Ethan. She hadn't seen him in weeks. He looked worse. Thinner. More frantic. Phone in hand the entire time, glancing at it every few seconds while they talked. How's the startup? She asked. Crazy. Nonstop. You know how it is. He laughed, but it came out hollow. Always connected. Always on. That's the game. Maya watched him check his phone 3 times in 2 minutes. She used to think that was dedication. Now she recognized it for what it was. Slavery. Not to a boss. Not to a company. To a device designed to capture attention and never give it back. Hey, she said gently. When's the last time you went a full hour without checking that? Ethan looked at his phone, then at her, then back at his phone. He couldn't answer. That night, Maya sat in her focus corner. Phone in another room. Laptop closed. Just her thoughts and the quiet. She was learning something important. Energy was the foundation, but attention was the currency. And protecting that currency required more than good intentions. It required walls, barriers, architecture designed to defend against a world designed to distract. She wasn't winning yet, but for the first time in years, she was actually in the fight. And that was enough. For now. Chapter 6. Identity, the ultimate leverage point. 6 weeks in, Maya had energy systems. She had attention guardrails. She was protecting her mornings, matching tasks to her chronotype, defending her focus like a fortress. And yet, something was still missing. She noticed it in small moments. The voice in her head that said, "This isn't really you," when she left work at a reasonable hour. The guilt that crept in when she rested. The feeling that she was pretending to be someone else, playing a role that didn't quite fit. She was doing all the right things, but she didn't feel like the kind of person who does these things. There's a difference, and that difference is everything. Maya brought this to Dr. Noor during their next session. "I feel like a fraud," she admitted. "Like I'm faking it. Going through the motions of this new system, but not really believing it." Dr. Noor listened carefully. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that meant Maya had stumbled onto something important. "You've just identified the deepest layer," she said. "The one most people never reach." She stood up and walked to her whiteboard, drew 3 concentric circles. Most people try to change from the outside in. She pointed to the outer circle. They start with outcomes. "I want to lose weight. I want to be successful. I want to stop burning out." She moved inward. When that doesn't work, they focus on behaviors. "I'll go to the gym. I'll work smarter. I'll manage my energy." This is where you've been operating. She tapped the center circle. But lasting change works from the inside out. It starts here, with identity, with who you believe you are. Here's the insight that changes everything. Your behavior flows from your identity, not the other way around. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. When there's alignment between identity and behavior, action feels natural, effortless, like you're just being yourself. When there's friction, when your behavior contradicts your identity, everything feels like a struggle. You're fighting yourself with every choice. This is why most change efforts fail. People try to adopt new behaviors while holding on to old identities. They want the results of a disciplined person without believing they are disciplined. They want the outcomes of a healthy person while still seeing themselves as someone who struggles with health. The behaviors might stick for a while. Willpower can bridge the gap temporarily, but eventually, identity wins. You always return to the baseline of who you believe you are. Average performers focus on what they want to achieve. Elite performers focus on who they want to become. This is the ultimate leverage point. Change your identity, and behavior follows naturally. Keep the old identity, and you'll fight every change forever. Dr. Noor returned to her chair. "Tell me," she said, "how would you describe yourself? Your identity as a professional." Maya thought about it. Really thought. "I'm a hard worker. Someone who pushes through. Who does whatever it takes. Who sacrifices to succeed." And how does that identity interact with your new systems? The realization hit Maya like cold water. Her systems were about working smarter, about rest and recovery, about sustainable performance. But her identity was still the person who pushes through, the grinder, the one who sacrifices everything. No wonder she felt like a fraud. Her new behaviors were at war with her old identity. "I'm trying to act like someone I don't believe I am," Maya said slowly. Exactly. And that conflict is exhausting. It creates cognitive dissonance, a constant tension between what you're doing and who you think you are. Dr. Noor leaned forward. "The question isn't whether you can maintain these systems. You've proven you can. The question is, who do you need to become for these systems to feel natural?" This is the shift from "I do" to "I am." I do is behavioral, external, effortful. I am is identity, internal, automatic. Consider the difference. I'm trying to work smarter versus I am someone who works strategically. I'm trying to protect my energy versus I am someone who values sustainable performance. I'm trying to avoid burnout versus I am a high performer who understands that recovery is part of excellence. Feel the difference? The first version requires constant effort. You're swimming against the current of who you believe you are. The second version is just being yourself. The behaviors flow naturally from the identity. There's no fight because there's no friction. This is why identity is the ultimate leverage point. It's not another tactic. It's the foundation that makes all tactics sustainable. So how do I change my identity? Maya asked. It's not like I can just decide to believe something different. Dr. Noor smiled. Actually, you can. but not through thinking, through evidence. She explained the process. Identity isn't fixed. It's a story you tell yourself, reinforced by evidence. You believe you're a hard worker because you have years of evidence, late nights, sacrifices, pushing through exhaustion. That evidence built a narrative. The narrative became identity. The same process works in reverse. Every small action that aligns with your desired identity is a vote, a piece of evidence. Do it enough times, and the evidence accumulates. The story starts to shift. The identity follows. You don't change your identity and then change your behavior, Dr. North said. You change your behavior in small ways, collect evidence, and your identity updates to match the evidence. She gave an example. You want to become someone who values sustainable performance. Every time you leave work at a reasonable hour, that's a vote. Every time you protect your morning focus time, that's a vote. Every time you rest without guilt, that's a vote. One vote doesn't change an election, but 1,000 votes? 10,000? Eventually, the evidence becomes overwhelming, and your brain updates its story. Maya sat with this for a long moment. She thought about all the votes she'd cast over the years. The late nights, the skipped meals, the canceled plans, the push through exhaustion. Thousands of votes for one identity, the grinder, the sacrificer, the person who pushes harder no matter the cost. No wonder that identity felt so solid. It was built on years of evidence. But that also meant it could be rebuilt, vote by vote, day by day, a new evidence base for a new story. What identity should I aim for? Maya asked. Dr. Noor shook her head. I can't tell you that. It has to be yours. But I can offer a framework. She wrote on the whiteboard. I am the kind of person who Fill in that blank with who you want to become. Not what you want to do, who you want to be. Then ask, what would that person do in this situation? And do that. Collect the evidence. Let identity follow behavior. That night, Maya sat alone with her journal. She wrote the prompt at the top of the page. I am the kind of person who Then she stared at it for a long time. Who did she want to become? Not the grinder. She'd been that person. It had nearly destroyed her. Not the slacker. That wasn't her either. She cared about excellence, about contribution, about doing meaningful work, something in between, something sustainable. She started writing. I am the kind of person who performs at a high level without sacrificing my health. I am the kind of person who works strategically, not just hard. I am the kind of person who understands that rest is part of excellence. I am the kind of person who protects my energy because my energy is my power. I am the kind of person who shows up fully at work and at home. She read the list back. Something stirred inside her. This felt different than goals. Goals were external, things to achieve, finish lines to cross. This was internal, a way of being, not a destination, but a direction. And for the first time, she could see a version of herself that succeeded without burning, a version that won the game without losing herself in the process. The next morning, Maya faced a choice. Her inbox was overflowing. A project was behind schedule. The old Maya would have canceled her focus time, would have pushed into the evening, would have sacrificed sleep to catch up. But she paused. She asked the question, what would the person I'm becoming do? That person would protect the morning focus time, would do deep work first, then triage the urgent, would trust that strategic work now prevents crisis work later. Maya took a breath, closed her email, sat down in her focus corner. It felt wrong. The guilt screamed at her. The old identity fought back hard. But she did it anyway. Cast the vote. Added the evidence. One small action. One tiny proof that maybe, just maybe, she could be someone different. Here's what I want you to understand. You are not your past. You are not the sum of your previous choices. You are who you choose to be, starting now. Every moment is a chance to cast a vote. For the old identity or the new one. For the person you've been or the person you're becoming. The votes don't have to be big. They shouldn't be, at first. Small, consistent votes beat dramatic, unsustainable gestures every time. Skip one unnecessary meeting. That's a vote. Leave on time once this week. That's a vote. Protect 1 hour of focus time. That's a vote. Rest without guilt for one evening. That's a vote. None of these change your identity overnight, but they start building evidence. And evidence, accumulated over time, rewrites the story you tell yourself about who you are. This is how lasting change actually works. Not through willpower, not through motivation, through identity, through becoming someone for whom the right behaviors are simply natural. Weeks passed. Maya kept casting votes. Some days were harder than others. The old identity didn't go quietly. It fought back with guilt and anxiety and the constant whisper of, "You should be doing more." But the evidence accumulated. She was the person who protected her mornings, the person who left at reasonable hours, the person who rested without apology. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the story started to shift. She wasn't pretending anymore. She was becoming. Chapter 7. Self-Sabotage, the Enemy Within. 2 months into her transformation, Maya crashed. Not gradually this time. Not the slow erosion she'd experienced before. This was sudden, violent, like hitting a wall at full speed. It started with a product launch. Her biggest project of the year. 3 months of work converging on a single week. High stakes, high visibility. The kind of moment that made or broke careers. She knew the pressure was coming. She thought she was ready. She wasn't. The first sign was small. A skipped morning walk. Just this once, she told herself. Too much to do. Then the focus blocks started shrinking. 90 minutes became 60. 60 became 30. Then disappeared entirely, swallowed by urgent meetings and last-minute fires. Then the late nights returned. One night became two. Two became a week. She stopped tracking her energy. Stopped protecting her attention. Stopped asking what the person she was becoming would do. She just pushed and pushed. And by the time the launch was over, she was right back where she started. Exhausted, depleted, staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror at 2 a.m., wondering what the hell had happened. 2 months of progress. Gone in 10 days. Here's something nobody warns you about. Change isn't linear. It's not a steady climb from who you were to who you want to become. It's messy. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes 2 steps back. Sometimes you fall all the way to the bottom and wonder if you ever really changed at all. This is where most people quit. They build new habits. They make progress. Then something happens. Stress, crisis, pressure, and old patterns resurface. They conclude that change doesn't work for them, that they're fundamentally broken, that they should just accept who they are and stop trying. But here's the truth they miss. Setbacks aren't signs that change isn't working. They're part of how change works. They reveal the deeper patterns, the hidden saboteurs, the underground rivers that still flow beneath the surface, waiting for the right pressure to break through. Maya's crash wasn't a failure. It was a revelation. The question was, what would she do with it? She called Dr. Noor the next morning. Voice hollow, pride shattered. "I ruined everything," Maya said. "All that progress, all those systems. I threw it all away the moment things got hard." Dr. Noor's response surprised her. "Good. Good? How is this good? Because now we get to see what's really going on. The systems worked when pressure was low. They failed when pressure was high. That tells us something important. There's a deeper pattern we haven't addressed yet." She paused. "Tell me exactly what happened. Not the external events. The internal ones. What were you feeling when you started abandoning your systems?" Maya thought back. The launch week. The mounting pressure. The moment she decided to skip her morning routine. Fear, she admitted. I was terrified the launch would fail. That I wasn't doing enough. That I would disappoint everyone. And what did skipping your systems give you? The feeling that I was doing everything possible. That if it failed, at least it wasn't because I didn't try hard enough. Dr. Noor nodded slowly. There it is. Self-sabotage pattern number 1. Perfectionism. Let me explain what perfectionism really is. Most people think perfectionism means wanting things to be perfect. High standards. Attention to detail. Sounds almost noble, but that's not what perfectionism is at all. Perfectionism is fear wearing a mask. It's the terror of being judged, of falling short, of not being enough, disguised as high standards. And here's the cruel twist. Perfectionism doesn't lead to better performance. It leads to sabotage. When you're terrified of failing, you do one of 2 things. You either over-prepare to an unhealthy degree, abandoning all boundaries, sacrificing everything, proving you tried your hardest. Or you underprepare, procrastinating, avoiding, giving yourself an excuse if things go wrong. Both are sabotage. Both come from the same root. The belief that your worth depends on your performance. Maya's crash wasn't random. It was perfectionism in action. The fear of failure drove her to abandon every system she'd built. Not because the systems didn't work, but because her deeper belief told her that sustainable effort wasn't enough. That only total sacrifice could protect her from judgment. This is the enemy within. And until you see it clearly, it will keep undermining your progress. There's more, Dr. Nurse said. Perfectionism is one pattern, but there are others. Let's look at the full picture. She introduced Maya to the 3 most common self-sabotage patterns. Pattern 1, perfectionism. The belief that your worth equals your performance leads to overwork, burnout, and the abandonment of sustainable systems when stakes feel high. Pattern 2, avoidance. The belief that if you don't try, you can't fail leads to procrastination, distraction, and never fully committing to anything important. You protect your ego by never putting it on the line. Pattern 3, reward substitution. The belief that you've earned indulgence through effort leads to self-defeating cycles where hard work is followed by behaviors that undo the progress. Exercise followed by junk food. Focus followed by hours of mindless scrolling. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Most high achievers, Dr. Nurse said, have some combination of all 3. The patterns learned early, reinforced over years, running in the background like invisible programs, activated by stress. Maya recognized herself in all of them. The perfectionism that drove her to sacrifice everything during launch week. The avoidance that made her procrastinate on hard decisions, filling time with busy work instead. The reward substitution that led to late-night snacking binges after stressful days. I deserve this, she'd tell herself, even as she undid her progress. These weren't character flaws. They were patterns. Patterns that could be seen, named, and ultimately changed. Here's what most people don't understand about self-sabotage. It's not irrational. It makes perfect sense from a certain perspective. Every sabotage pattern started as a protection mechanism. Perfectionism protected you from criticism when you were young. If you did everything perfectly, no one could hurt you. Avoidance protected you from failure. If you never really tried, you never really failed. Reward substitution protected you from deprivation. You learned that comfort was scarce, so you grabbed it when you could. These patterns aren't your enemies. They're outdated defense systems. Programs written for an earlier version of your life that are still running even though the threats have changed. The problem isn't that you have these patterns. Everyone does. The problem is that you're not aware of them. They run in the background, invisible, pulling strings you don't see, making decisions you don't realize you're making. Awareness is the first step. Not fixing, not fighting, just seeing. When you can name the pattern in real time, there's perfectionism showing up. You create space. A gap between stimulus and response. A moment of choice where before there was only reaction. This is what Dr. Noor had given Maya, the ability to see what she'd been blind to her entire life. That evening, Maya sat with Sam for their weekly check-in. She told him about the crash, the shame, the feeling that she'd wasted 2 months of progress. Sam listened. Then he said something she didn't expect. 2 months of progress aren't gone. They're in your body now, in your memory. You know what sustainable feels like. You know what burning out feels like. Before, you only knew one option. Now you know both. He leaned forward. The old patterns are strong because they've been practiced for years. The new patterns are weak because they've been practiced for weeks. Of course, the old ones won when pressure hit. They're more deeply grooved. So what do? You get back on the path. Not tomorrow. Right now. This conversation. This moment. You cast a vote for the person you're becoming. And then you cast another. And another. Until the new grooves are deeper than the old ones. He pulled out his notebook. But we also need to add something to your system. A circuit breaker. Something that kicks in when stress goes high. A pre-planned response for exactly these moments. This is the concept of implementation intentions. When X happens, I will do Y. Not vague commitments. Specific, pre-decided responses to specific triggers. When I feel overwhelmed, I will take 3 deep breaths before making any decisions. When I'm tempted to skip my morning routine, I will do a 10-minute version instead of nothing. When I notice perfectionism rising, I will ask, what would good enough look like? When pressure peaks, I will protect one non-negotiable, even if everything else slides. The power is in the pre-decision. When stress hits, your prefrontal cortex, the rational, planning part, goes offline. You don't have the cognitive resources to make good choices in the moment. But if the choice is already made, if the response is already programmed, you can execute without thinking. Maya worked with Sam to build her circuit breakers. Specific triggers, specific responses, a safety net for when, not if, pressure returned. That night, Maya made a decision. She wouldn't pretend the crash hadn't happened, wouldn't bury it in shame, wouldn't minimize it or explain it away. She would use it. The crash had shown her something she needed to see. The hidden programs running beneath her systems. The saboteurs she'd been carrying since childhood. She wasn't fixed. She wasn't cured. But she was aware now. And awareness was power. She opened her journal and wrote, I'm the kind of person who falls down and gets back up. I'm the kind of person who learns from setbacks instead of being destroyed by them. I'm the kind of person who keeps casting votes, even when the old patterns fight back. She stared at the words. They didn't feel true yet. Not completely, but they would. Vote by vote, day by day, evidence by evidence. The enemy within wasn't gone, but now she could see it. And that changed everything. The environment architect. Maya stood in the doorway of her apartment, seeing it for the first time. Not literally, of course. She'd lived here for 3 years, but she'd never really looked at it. Never examined how the space was designed. Never considered what messages it was sending her brain every time she walked through the door. Sam had given her an assignment after their last session. Before we build your daily operating system, we need to audit your environment. Walk through your home and office. Look at every object, every arrangement, every default. Ask yourself, is this designed for the person I'm becoming or the person I'm trying to leave behind? The question haunted her as she surveyed her apartment. Her laptop sat on the kitchen counter, the first thing she saw every morning. Her phone charger was on her nightstand, the last thing she touched every night and the first thing she grabbed every morning. Her running shoes were buried in a closet she rarely opened. Her journal was somewhere in a drawer she couldn't remember. The environment was screaming at her. And the message was clear: work first, work always, work everywhere. No wonder her old patterns kept winning. Here's a truth that will change how you think about behavior change. You are not entirely in control of your choices. This sounds defeatist. It's actually liberating. Your environment makes hundreds of decisions for you every day. The food in your kitchen determines what you eat. The apps on your phone's home screen determine what you consume. The layout of your space determines how you move, what you see, what you think about. These aren't conscious choices. They're defaults. And defaults are incredibly powerful because they operate below awareness. Research shows that people are far more likely to choose whatever option is easiest, closest, or most visible, regardless of their intentions. Put healthy food at eye level in the fridge, and consumption of healthy food increases dramatically. Put the TV remote on the couch and books in another room, and people watch more TV. This isn't weakness. This is how human cognition works. We're designed to conserve energy, to follow the path of least resistance, to let the environment guide us. Average performers fight their environment. They try to make good choices in spaces designed for bad ones. They rely on willpower to overcome defaults that push them the wrong way. Elite performers design their environment. They make the right choice the easy choice. They build spaces that support their goals automatically, without requiring constant conscious effort. This is environmental architecture, and it's one of the most powerful tools for lasting change. Sam met Maya at her apartment the following Saturday. He walked through slowly, methodically, like a detective examining a crime scene, taking notes, asking questions, opening drawers and cabinets. Tell me about your morning routine, he said, standing in her bedroom. Alarm goes off. I grab my phone, check notifications, eventually get out of bed, shower, coffee, start working, And where does your phone charge? Maya pointed at the nightstand. 6 inches from her pillow. Sam nodded. So the very first thing you do every morning is pick up a device designed to hijack your attention. Before you're even fully conscious, you've handed control of your mind to whoever sent you notifications overnight. He walked to the kitchen, pointed at the laptop on the counter. And this is the first thing you see when you enter the main living space. Work. Always present. Always visible. Always calling for attention. Maya felt exposed. Not judged. Sam's tone was clinical, not critical, but seen in a way that was uncomfortable. Your environment is perfectly designed for the results you're getting, Sam said. That's not an insult. It's physics. If you want different results, you need different design. They spent 3 hours redesigning her apartment. The changes weren't dramatic. No renovation required. Just strategic repositioning of objects and creation of intentional spaces. The phone charger moved to the kitchen. Now, checking her phone in the morning required getting out of bed and walking to another room. Friction added to a bad behavior. The laptop moved to a dedicated workspace in the corner, a small desk she'd been using as a catch-all for mail and clutter. Work now had a home, and when she wasn't at that desk, work was out of sight. Her running shoes moved to the front door, visible every time she left or entered. A constant visual cue. Friction removed from a good behavior. Her journal moved to her nightstand, the exact spot where her phone used to be. Now the first thing she reached for in the morning could be reflection instead of reaction. Her bedroom became a sleep sanctuary. No screens allowed. Blackout curtains installed. A small white noise machine. The room now had one purpose: rest. The kitchen became a recovery zone. Healthy snacks at eye level. Meal prep containers ready. The path to good nutrition made smooth and obvious. Each change was small. Together, they transformed the entire environment. Here's the principle behind environmental design. Every behavior has a friction level, the amount of effort required to initiate it. Bad behaviors with low friction happen automatically. Phone on nightstand. You'll check it. Junk food on counter. You'll eat it. Netflix autoplaying. You'll watch another episode. Good behaviors with high friction rarely happen. Gym across town. You'll skip it. Vegetables in the back of the fridge. They'll rot. Journal in a drawer. It'll stay unopened. The goal is simple. Increase friction for behaviors you want to avoid. Decrease friction for behaviors you want to adopt. This isn't about eliminating choice. It's about shaping the default. You can still check your phone in the morning, but now you have to get out of bed first. You can still skip your run, but now you see your shoes every time you leave. The right choice doesn't require heroic willpower anymore. It's just the easy choice. But environmental design isn't just about physical space. There's another layer, Sam explained as they finished the apartment. Your social environment. The people you spend time with. The conversations you have. The norms you're surrounded by. He sat down across from Maya. Here's an uncomfortable truth. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not because of mystical energy or motivation contagion. Because of norms. The people around you define what's normal, and you unconsciously adjust to match. Maya thought about her social circle. Colleagues who glorified overwork. Friends who complained about being busy but never changed anything. Ethan, who had made burnout look like dedication. If everyone around you works until midnight, working until midnight feels normal. If everyone checks email constantly, constant checking feels normal. You don't even question it. Sam leaned forward. But the reverse is also true. Surround yourself with people who protect their energy, and energy protection becomes normal. Spend time with people who prioritize recovery, and recovery becomes normal. Your environment isn't just your apartment. It's your entire ecosystem. This was harder to redesign than furniture. Maya couldn't just rearrange her relationships like she'd rearranged her kitchen, but she could be intentional about exposure. She started spending more time with colleagues who worked sustainably. There were a few. She'd just never noticed them because they weren't loud about it. They left on time. They took real vacations. They somehow produced excellent work without the martyrdom. She reduced time with the chronic complainers. The ones who talked about being overwhelmed but wore it as a badge. The ones who made her feel guilty for trying to change. She found new inputs. podcasts, and books from people who had built sustainable success. Online communities focused on performance without burnout. Role models who proved it was possible. She talked to David about what she was learning, made him a partner in her transformation instead of a bystander, asked for his help in maintaining boundaries. Slowly, her social environment began to shift. The norms she was surrounded by began to change, and with them, her sense of what was possible. There's one more principle Sam taught her that day: choice architecture. You can't eliminate decisions, he said, but you can pre-make them. Every decision you make in advance is a decision you don't have to make in the moment. He gave examples. Clothes laid out the night before. No morning decision about what to wear. Meals prepped on Sunday. No daily decision about what to eat. Calendar blocks for deep work. No decision about when to focus. Phone in airplane mode during creation time. No decision about whether to check notifications. Decision fatigue is real, Sam explained. Every choice depletes your cognitive resources. By the end of the day, you're exhausted, not from work, but from deciding. Pre-made choices eliminate that drain. Maya thought about her days. The constant micro-decisions. What to work on, when to check email, whether to take a break, where to eat lunch. Each one seemed trivial. Together, they were exhausting. What if most of those were already decided? Over the following weeks, Maya became an environment architect. She audited every space she spent time in. Her home, her office, her car, even her digital environment. Phone home screen, browser bookmarks, app notifications. Everything was evaluated through one lens. Does this make the right choice easier or harder? Distractions were removed or hidden. Supportive cues were added and made visible. Defaults were reconfigured. Friction was strategically placed. She pre-made decisions wherever possible. Morning routine, decided. Work blocks, decided. Meals, decided. Exercise time, decided. The cognitive load dropped dramatically. She had more mental energy for actual work because she wasn't spending it on constant choices. And something unexpected happened. The new behaviors started feeling natural. Not because her willpower had increased, because her environment had made them automatic. She wasn't fighting anymore. The architecture was doing the work. Here's what I want you to take from this chapter. Your environment is not neutral. It's either helping you or hurting you. Every day, in thousands of small ways, your surroundings are shaping your behavior. You can ignore this and rely on willpower. Fight the current. Exhaust yourself making good choices in spaces designed for bad ones. Or you can become an architect. Redesign your environment intentionally. Make the right choice the easy choice. Let the structure support you. Look around right now, at your physical space, your digital space, your social space. Ask the question, is this designed for who I'm becoming or who I'm trying to leave behind? If the answer is honest, you'll know exactly what to change. And when you change your environment, your behavior follows. Not through force, through design. That's the power of architecture. Chapter 8. Building your daily operating system. 3 days after her crash, Maya sat across from Sam with a blank notebook and a simple question. How do I build something that doesn't break? Sam smiled. Not the polished smile of someone selling a solution. The knowing smile of someone who'd asked that same question himself. You don't, he said. Everything breaks eventually. The goal isn't a system that never fails. It's a system that fails gracefully and recovers quickly. He pulled out a worn notebook of his own. Pages covered in diagrams, checklists, crossed out ideas, and refined ones. Let me show you what I've learned. Not theory, practice. The actual architecture I use every day. Maya leaned forward. This was what she needed. Not principles, not concepts. Blueprints. Here's what most productivity advice gets wrong. It gives you tactics without architecture, tips without structure, pieces without showing you how they fit together. You end up with a drawer full of tools and no idea how to build anything with them. What you need is an operating system, a complete framework that integrates everything, energy, attention, identity, habits, into a coherent daily practice. This isn't about perfection. It's about consistency, a reliable structure that holds you when motivation fades and pressure rises. Sam had spent years refining his system, testing what worked, discarding what didn't. What he showed Maya that afternoon wasn't theory. It was battle-tested architecture, and it had 5 core components. Component 1, the morning ignition ritual. How you start your day determines how you live your day, Sam said. Most people wake up reactive. They check their phones. They scroll. They let the world's priorities flood in before they've established their own. He described his morning ritual. Not elaborate, not time-consuming. 20 minutes that set the trajectory for everything that followed. First 5 minutes, body activation. Movement, stretching, getting blood flowing. Nothing intense, just enough to signal to the body that the day has begun. Next 5 minutes, mind priming. Review of daily priorities. Not the whole to-do list, just the 1 or 2 things that actually matter. The needle movers. Next 5 minutes, identity reinforcement. Reading his identity statements. Reminding himself who he's becoming. Setting intention for how he wants to show up. Final 5 minutes, preparation. Reviewing the calendar. Anticipating obstacles. Pre-deciding responses to likely challenges. 20 minutes, Sam said. Non-negotiable. Before email. Before phone. Before anyone else's agenda enters my brain. Maya thought about her mornings. The chaos. The reactivity. The feeling of being behind before she'd even started. What if she began differently? Component 2, the free block day. Sam drew 3 boxes on his notepad. Your day has 3 blocks. Not 8 hours of undifferentiated time. 3 distinct containers with different purposes. Block 1, creation. Your peak energy hours. For Maya, this was 9 to 11 a.m. protected fiercely. Used only for deep work, the cognitively demanding tasks that move the needle. No meetings. No email. No shallow work. This is where your most important output happens. Block 2, connection. Your moderate energy hours. For most people, late morning and mid-afternoon. Used for collaborative work, meetings, calls, discussions, feedback sessions. The work that requires presence but not peak cognition. Block 3, administration. Your low energy hours. For Maya, the post-lunch dip. Used for shallow work, email, administrative tasks, organizing, planning. Important but not demanding. Batched together so it doesn't contaminate the other blocks. The key, Sam emphasized, is protecting the boundaries. Creation time is creation time. You don't let meetings creep in. You don't check email just for a second. The blocks are sacred. Maya had tried time blocking before. It never stuck. What's different about this approach? She asked. Energy alignment, Sam said. Most people time block without considering their biology. They schedule deep work at 3 p.m. when their brain is running on fumes. This system matches task type to energy availability. It works with your body, not against it. Component 3, the shutdown ritual. Endings matter as much as beginnings, Sam said. Most people just stop. They drift away from work. They carry unfinished tasks and open loops into their evenings. Their brain never gets the signal that work is done. He described his shutdown ritual. 15 minutes at the end of every workday. First, capture. Write down everything that's unfinished. Every open loop. Every lingering task. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Second, review tomorrow. Look at the next day's calendar. Identify the 1 or 2 priorities. Pre-decide when deep work will happen. Third, declare completion. Say it out loud or write it down. The workday is complete. This sounds silly. It's not. Your brain needs a clear signal that it's safe to disengage. Without this ritual, Sam explained, your brain keeps processing work in the background. You're physically home, but mentally still at the office. The shutdown ritual creates a hard boundary. Work stays at work. Life gets your full presence. Maya thought about her evenings with David. The half-presence. The distracted conversations. The feeling that she was never fully anywhere. Maybe this was why. Component 4, the weekly review. Daily systems keep you moving, Sam said. Weekly reviews keep you moving in the right direction. He described his Sunday ritual. 1 hour. Same time every week. Non-negotiable. The review had 3 parts. Part 1, reflect. What worked this week? What didn't? What did you learn? Not judgment, just observation. Data collection about your own patterns. Part 2, reset. Clear the decks. Process your inbox to 0. Review your project list. Update your priorities. Make sure nothing is falling through the cracks. Part 3. Plan. Look at the week ahead. Identify the major priorities. Pre-schedule your creation blocks. Anticipate obstacles and pre-decide responses. Most people skip this, Sam said. They're too busy, too tired, too caught up in the urgent to step back and look at the important. He leaned forward. But this is where the magic happens. This is where you catch drift before it becomes disaster. Where you notice that you've been neglecting something important. Where you make adjustments before small problems become big ones. Maya had never done anything like this. She'd always been too busy executing to step back and evaluate. Maybe that was the problem. Component 5. Accountability architecture. The final piece, Sam said. You can't do this alone. Not sustainably. You need accountability structures that keep you honest when motivation fades. He described 3 levels. Level 1. Self-accountability. Tracking systems. A simple log where you record whether you did what you said you'd do. Not for judgment. For awareness. You can't improve what you don't measure. Level 2. Partner accountability. One person who knows your goals. Who you check in with regularly. Who asks the uncomfortable questions when you're drifting. This could be a friend, a spouse, a colleague. Someone who cares enough to push back. Level 3. Structural accountability. Commitments that create external consequences. A coach you've paid. A deadline you've announced publicly. A team counting on your deliverable. Skin in the game that makes backing out costly. The more layers, the stronger the system, Sam said. Self-accountability is weakest. You can lie to yourself easily. Structural accountability is strongest. The consequences are real and external. He looked at Maya directly. What's your accountability architecture right now? Maya thought about it. She had none. She'd been trying to do everything alone. Through willpower. Through self-discipline. No wonder she kept failing. They spent the next 2 hours building Maya's operating system from scratch. Her morning ignition ritual, 15 minutes of movement, priority review, and identity reinforcement. Before coffee, before phone, before the world. Her 3-block day, creation from 9 to 11. Connection from 11 to 1 and 2 to 4. Administration from 4 to 5:30. Boundaries protected with calendar blocks and phone-free zones. Her shutdown ritual. Capture, review, declare. Every day at 5:30. The signal to her brain that work was complete. Her weekly review. Sunday mornings, 9 to 10. Coffee shop. Reflection, reset, planning. 1 hour of strategic thinking for the entire week ahead. Her accountability architecture. Daily tracking in a simple app. Weekly check-ins with Sam. Monthly reviews with Dr. Noor. It wasn't complicated. That was the point. Sustainable systems are simple systems. Complex systems collapse under pressure. Simple systems survive. That first week, Maya ran the system like an experiment. Not perfectly. She missed her shutdown ritual twice. Her weekly review ran short. One creation block got hijacked by an urgent meeting. But she noticed something different. When things slipped, she knew exactly what had slipped and how to fix it. There was no ambiguity, no confusion. The system made everything visible. Before, failure was vague. A general sense of not doing well, without clarity on what specifically was broken. Now, failure was specific. I missed my shutdown ritual on Tuesday and carried open loops into my evening. Clear problem, clear solution. This was the power of an operating system. It didn't eliminate failure. It made failure diagnosable, fixable, a data point rather than an identity. By the end of the second week, something had shifted. Maya wasn't white-knuckling it anymore. The system wasn't something she had to remember. It was something that carried her. Morning ritual, automatic. 3-block structure, natural. Shutdown ritual, almost pleasurable. The moment when she declared the workday complete and felt her brain actually release. She had capacity left over. Energy for David, for friends, for herself. This was what sustainable looked like. Not heroic effort, not constant vigilance. A structure that did the heavy lifting so she could focus on what mattered. I feel like I'm cheating, she told Sam during their check-in. He laughed. That's how you know it's working. When good performance feels easy, you've designed the system right. Here's what I want you to understand. An operating system isn't a prison. It's a foundation. It doesn't restrict your freedom. It creates it. Without structure, you waste energy on decisions. What should I do now? When should I work on this? How do I protect my focus? With structure, those decisions are already made. The cognitive load is eliminated. Your energy goes to the work itself, not to managing the work. This is how elite performers make it look easy. Not because they have more discipline, because they have better architecture. The system handles what the system can handle. They show up for what only they can do. You don't need more willpower. You need more structure. Build the operating system. Let it carry you. And watch what becomes possible when you stop fighting and start flowing. Chapter 9. The Compound Effect of Small Wins. For months had passed since Maya's panic attack in the parking garage. She barely recognized herself. Not in some dramatic, movie montage way. The changes had been subtle, incremental, so gradual that she almost missed them happening. But when she looked back at where she'd started, the distance was staggering. Her mornings were calm now, ritualized. She woke up before her alarm most days, not from anxiety, but from genuine rest. Her energy held steady through the afternoon. Her evenings belonged to her again. But it wasn't just the externals. Something deeper had shifted. The constant hum of anxiety that used to live in her chest had quieted. The voice that whispered, "You're not doing enough," had grown softer. The identity she'd been building, vote by vote, day by day, had started to feel real. She was becoming the person she'd written about in her journal. And it had happened so slowly that she almost didn't notice. Here's what nobody tells you about transformation. It doesn't feel like transformation while it's happening. It feels like nothing. Like small, boring actions repeated day after day. Like showing up when you don't feel like it. Like casting votes that seem to make no difference. And then one day, you look up and realize everything has changed. This is the compound effect. The most powerful force in personal development. And the most misunderstood. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a week and underestimate what they can accomplish in a year. They want dramatic results from dramatic efforts. They want transformation to feel like transformation, exciting, visible, immediate. But that's not how it works. Real change is boring. It's the same small actions, repeated with consistency, over time. It's so gradual that you can't see it day to day. Only when you zoom out, weeks, months, years, does the magnitude become visible. Average performers chase dramatic breakthroughs. They swing for the fences, burn out, and start over. Elite performers trust the compound effect. They make small deposits, day after day, and let time do the heavy lifting. Maya had finally learned to trust the process. And the process was paying dividends she never expected. Dr. Noor had introduced her to a concept that changed how she thought about progress. Feedback loops. Every system needs feedback, Dr. Noor explained during one of their sessions. Without it, you're flying blind. You don't know what's working. You don't know what needs adjustment. You're just hoping. She drew a simple diagram. Action leads to result. Result provides data. Data informs adjustment. Adjustment improves action. A continuous cycle of refinement. Most people skip the middle steps, Dr. Noor said. They take action and move on. They never pause to measure results. They never analyze what the data is telling them. They never make systematic adjustments. She tapped the diagram. Without feedback loops, you repeat the same mistakes forever. With them, every iteration makes you slightly better. Over time, those slight improvements compound into mastery. Maya thought about her own history. All those years of pushing harder without ever stopping to ask, is this actually working? She'd been taking action without feedback, effort without analysis, motion without progress. No wonder she kept ending up in the same place. Here's the principle that changes everything. What gets measured gets managed. Not in a cold, corporate way, in a self-aware, scientific way. You become the researcher of your own life. You run experiments. You collect data. You analyze results. You adjust and iterate. This isn't obsessive tracking. It's strategic observation. Maya started simple. 3 metrics, measured weekly. Metric 1, energy score. Average daily energy rating, 1 to 10. A proxy for how well her biological systems were functioning. Metric 2, deep work hours. Total hours spent in focused, undistracted creation. a proxy for her most valuable output. Metric 3, recovery quality. Subjective rating of rest, relationships, and renewal. A proxy for sustainability. 3 numbers. Once a week. During her Sunday review. The first month, the numbers were erratic. Some weeks high, some weeks low. No clear pattern. But by month 2, trends emerged. She noticed that her energy crashed whenever she skipped morning movement for more than 2 days. She noticed that deep work hours dropped when she let meetings creep into her creation blocks. She noticed that recovery quality correlated strongly with whether she did her shutdown ritual. This was the power of measurement. Patterns became visible. Cause and effect became clear. Adjustments became obvious. She wasn't guessing anymore. She was iterating. Sam called this approach being a scientist of your own life. Most people approach self-improvement like gamblers, he said. They try things randomly. They don't track what works. They make the same bets over and over, hoping for different results. He leaned forward. Scientists approach it differently. They form hypotheses. They run controlled experiments. They measure outcomes. They adjust based on data, not feelings. He gave Maya a framework for personal experimentation. Step 1. Identify one variable to test. Not 5 things at once. One thing. Isolate the variable. Step 2. Define success criteria. How will you know if it worked? What specific outcome are you measuring? Step 3. Set a time frame. How long will you run the experiment? Usually 2 to 4 weeks. Long enough to see real effects. Short enough to maintain focus. Step 4. Execute consistently. Do the thing. Every day. Without variation. Control for other factors as much as possible. Step 5. Analyze results. Did the metric improve? By how much? What else did you notice? Step 6. Decide. Keep the change. Modify it. Discard it. Move to the next experiment. Maya had run a dozen experiments over the past 3 months. Some succeeded. Moving her workout to morning increased her afternoon energy by an average of 2 points. Some failed. Meditation before bed didn't improve her sleep quality, but meditation after lunch did. Some surprised her. Eating a protein-heavy breakfast had a bigger impact on focus than any productivity hack she tried. Each experiment taught her something. Each lesson refined her system. Each refinement compounded over time. She wasn't following someone else's formula anymore. She was building her own, based on her own data, optimized for her own biology and circumstances. This was what personalized performance actually looked like. Let me tell you about momentum. There's a physics principle that applies perfectly to personal development. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. When you're stuck, getting started is the hardest part. Everything feels heavy. Every action requires enormous effort. You're fighting inertia. But once you're moving, something shifts. The effort required decreases. The results start compounding. Small wins create confidence. Confidence fuels action. Action produces more wins. This is the momentum flywheel. And once it's spinning, it becomes self-sustaining. Maya felt this shift around month 3. The systems that had required conscious effort started running on autopilot. The identity that had felt aspirational started feeling natural. The progress that had been invisible started becoming obvious, to her and to everyone around her. Her manager commented on her increased output. Her team noticed her calmer presence. David said she seemed like a different person. Lighter, more present, more herself. She wasn't pushing anymore. She was flowing. The flywheel was spinning, and it was generating its own energy. Here's something important about small wins. They don't just produce results. They produce identity evidence. Remember the concept from Chapter 6? Every action is a vote for the person you're becoming. Small wins are votes. And when you accumulate enough votes, your identity shifts. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. One heroic day of perfect performance is 1 vote. 30 average days of showing up is 30 votes. The math isn't close. Maya's transformation wasn't built on dramatic breakthroughs. It was built on boring consistency. Morning ritual, done. Focus blocks, protected. Shutdown ritual, completed. Week after week. Month after month. Each completion was a vote. Each vote was evidence. Each piece of evidence strengthened the new identity. By month 4, She didn't have to convince herself she was the kind of person who works sustainably. The evidence was overwhelming. The identity was solid. This is how lasting change actually happens. Not through willpower, through accumulated proof. One Sunday morning, during her weekly review, Maya did something she hadn't done before. She looked back at her very first tracking entries. From 4 months ago, right after her panic attack. Energy score, 3. Deep work hours, 2. Recovery quality, 2. She looked at this week's numbers. Energy score, 7. Deep work hours, 18. Recovery quality, 8. The difference was staggering. Not because any single week had been dramatically better than the one before, but because dozens of small improvements had compounded. 1% better, week after week, had become transformation. She thought about the Maya who had sat in that parking garage, hands trembling, wondering if this was all there was. That Maya couldn't have imagined this, couldn't have believed it was possible, would have dismissed it as naive optimism. But here it was, documented in data, undeniable. The compound effect was real, and she was living proof. Here's what I want you to take from this chapter. You don't need a dramatic transformation. You need a sustainable direction. Small actions, repeated consistently, will take you further than you can imagine. The math is on your side. Time is on your side. The compound effect is on your side. But you have to trust the process. You have to keep casting votes even when you can't see the results. You have to measure, iterate, and adjust, not based on feelings, but on data. Become a scientist of your own life. Run experiments. Track what matters. Let the feedback loops guide you. And most importantly, don't stop. The flywheel takes time to spin up. The early days are hard. The progress is invisible. The temptation to quit is overwhelming. But if you keep going, if you keep showing up, keep depositing small wins, keep trusting the compound effect, something magical happens. One day you look up and realize you're not the same person anymore. The distance you've traveled becomes visible, and you understand, finally, that sustainable success was never about pushing harder. It was about showing up, again and again, until showing up became who you are. Chapter 10. Your new life starts today. 1 year, 12 months since Maya sat in that parking garage, hands trembling, wondering if this was all there was. She stood now at her kitchen window, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Coffee in hand. No urgency, no dread, just presence. In an hour, she would begin her morning ritual, then her creation block, then the rest of a day designed around her biology, her priorities, her life. But right now, she was just here, watching the light change, feeling grateful for something she'd almost lost. Herself. The transformation hadn't been dramatic. There was no single moment when everything clicked. No Hollywood montage. No triumphant music. It had been slow, unglamorous. 1,000 small choices that didn't feel like anything at the time. But standing here now, she could see the distance. The Maya of 12 months ago was drowning, burning out, sacrificing everything for a version of success that left her empty. The Maya of today was thriving. Not perfectly. There were still hard days, still setbacks, still moments when old patterns tried to resurface. But she had systems now. She had awareness. She had an identity that supported her instead of sabotaging her. She had learned to outsmart the grind. Last week, she'd gotten a call from Ethan. His voice was different, quieter. The manic energy she remembered was gone, replaced by something heavy. The startup had failed. Investors had pulled out. The team had scattered. 2 years of all-nighters and sacrificed relationships, and he had nothing to show for it except a failed company and a body that had finally given out. He'd had a heart attack. At 30 years old, he survived, but the doctors were clear. His lifestyle had nearly killed him. The stress, the sleep deprivation, the years of treating his body like a machine, it had all caught up with him at once. "I did everything right," Ethan said, his voice cracking. "I worked harder than anyone. I sacrificed more than anyone. And I still lost." Maya listened, heart aching for him, for the guy he used to be, for the path he'd chosen without knowing where it led. "Maybe," she said gently, "working harder was never the answer." Silence on the line. "Then what is?" She thought about everything she'd learned. The systems, the energy management, the attention protection, the identity shift, the compound effect of small, sustainable actions. Working smarter, she said. Building systems instead of relying on willpower. Taking care of yourself so you can show up consistently, not heroically. Playing the long game. More silence. I wish someone had told me that 2 years ago. Maya closed her eyes. Someone probably did. We just weren't ready to hear it. Here's the truth about rock bottom. Sometimes it's the only teacher we'll listen to. We hear the advice. We read the books. We nod along to the podcasts. But we don't change. Because some part of us still believes we're the exception. That we can push through. That the rules don't apply to us. Until they do. Ethan had to have a heart attack to hear what Maya had tried to tell him. Maya had to have a panic attack to hear what her body had been screaming for years. But it doesn't have to be that way. You're listening to this right now, which means you have a choice. You can wait for your rock bottom, the breakdown, the diagnosis, the relationship that finally shatters. Or you can start changing now, before the crisis forces your hand. The information is the same either way. The only difference is the price you pay to receive it. Let me remind you what you've learned. You've learned that the hustle myth is a lie. That pushing harder doesn't lead to sustainable success. That the dominant cultural advice is destroying the people who follow it most faithfully. You've learned that motivation is unreliable. That willpower is a finite resource. That building your success on feelings is like building your house on sand. You've learned that systems beat willpower. That environment design beats discipline. That making the right choice easy beats trying to force yourself to make hard choices. You've learned that energy is your real currency. That managing your biology is the foundation of everything else. That working with your circadian rhythms instead of against them multiplies your output without increasing your effort. You've learned that attention is under attack. That you're fighting a war against trillion-dollar companies designed to hijack your focus. That guardrails, environmental, technological, social, are your only defense. You've learned that identity is the ultimate leverage point. That lasting change happens from the inside out. That becoming the person who naturally does the right things is more powerful than forcing yourself to do them. You've learned about self-sabotage, the hidden patterns of perfectionism, avoidance, and reward substitution that undermine your progress. And you've learned that awareness is the first step to freedom. You've learned how to build a daily operating system, morning rituals, 3-block days, shutdown routines, weekly reviews, accountability architecture, a complete framework that carries you when motivation fades. You've learned about the compound effect, how small wins accumulate into transformation, how consistency beats intensity, how becoming a scientist of your own life leads to continuous improvement. You have everything you need. The only question left is, what will you do with it? Here's what I want you to understand about this moment. Every day is a choice. Every morning you wake up and decide, consciously or unconsciously, which path you'll walk. You can walk the path of the grind. Push harder, sleep less, sacrifice more. Tell yourself that this is what it takes, that the pain is proof of your commitment, that the exhaustion is the price of success. That path has a destination. We've seen where it leads. Maya almost went there. Ethan arrived. Where you can walk a different path. The smarter path. The sustainable path. Where systems do the heavy lifting. Where energy is protected. Where attention is guarded. Where identity is intentionally constructed. Where small, consistent actions compound into extraordinary results. That path has a destination too. A place where high performance and well-being coexist. Where success doesn't require self-destruction. Where you can win the game without losing yourself. The choice is yours. It's always been yours. But here's what I know. You didn't listen to this entire audiobook by accident. Something in you knows there's a better way. Something in you is ready for change. Trust that something. Maya's life wasn't perfect now. She still had stressful weeks. She still faced pressure and deadlines and demands. The world hadn't changed. The grind was still there, waiting for anyone willing to be consumed by it. But she had changed, and that made all the difference. She had tools now, frameworks, an operating system that supported her instead of depleted her, an identity that made sustainable choices natural instead of forced. When pressure came, she didn't collapse. She leaned on her systems. When old patterns surfaced, she recognized them, named them, chose differently. When setbacks happened, and they still happened, she got back up, cast another vote, added more evidence. She wasn't fighting anymore. She was flowing. And for the first time in her adult life, she was excited about the future. Not because she expected it to be easy, but because she knew she could handle it. Sustainably, powerfully, as the person she had become. David proposed 3 months ago. They were on that coastal getaway she used to dream about during her burnout days. The place where rest seemed impossible, where slowing down felt like failure. Now it felt like home. He got down on one knee at sunset. The same colors she'd watched through her kitchen window this morning. Gold and pink and the promise of something new. She said yes. Of course she did. But what she really said yes to was bigger than a ring. She said yes to a life where she could show up. Fully. Present. Not a depleted shell giving leftovers to the people who mattered most, but a whole person with energy to give. That was the real gift of everything she'd learned. Not productivity. Not success. Not optimized performance. Presence. Connection. A life actually worth living. So here's my final message to you. Don't just listen to this audiobook. Use it. Start tomorrow. No, start today. Right now. Pick one thing. Just one. The morning ritual. The energy tracking. The focus blocks. The shutdown routine. One element of the system. Implement it for 1 week. Not perfectly. Just consistently. See what happens. Measure the results. Adjust and iterate. Then add another element. And another. Build the operating system piece by piece. Let the compound effect work in your favor. Cast votes. Collect evidence. Become the person for whom sustainable success is natural. It won't be fast. It won't be dramatic. Some days it will feel like nothing is happening. But I promise you, something is happening. Something profound. Something that will change your life in ways you can't imagine from where you're standing now. 1 year from today, you could be exactly where you are now. Same patterns, same exhaustion, same quiet desperation. Or you could be somewhere completely different, transformed by 1,000 small choices, living proof that there's a better way. The grind isn't going anywhere. The pressure isn't going to stop. The world will keep demanding more. But you don't have to meet it with brute force anymore. You can outsmart it. Your new life starts today, not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions are perfect. Today, right now, with the very next choice you make. Maya finished her coffee as the sun climbed higher. In a few minutes, she would begin. The ritual, the work, the life she had built from the ruins of the old one. But for now, she just stood there, breathing, present, grateful,